Millionaire CEO finds a woman's coat left on a coffee shop chair, then notices what's inside on a bitter December evening. A forgotten coat on a coffee shop chair held more than just warmth. It held a secret that would bridge two broken worlds. Inside its pocket, a child's letter revealed a truth so heartbreaking, it would move a millionaire to tears and change two lives forever. This is not a story about money. This is a story about what happens when humanity meets humility, and when a mother's sacrifice becomes someone else's salvation. This is the story of Sarah and Emma Mitchell and the coat that changed everything. The alarm clock buzzed at 4:30 a.m., its sharp cry piercing the quiet darkness of the small apartment. Sarah Mitchell's hand reached out from under the thin blanket, silencing it with practiced precision. She had exactly 45 minutes before Emma would wake up, and those minutes belonged to her, the only solitude she'd know all day. She moved quietly through the two-bedroom apartment, her bare feet cold against the worn linoleum floor. The radiator hissed and clanked, doing its best to fight off the December cold seeping through the old window frames. Sarah pulled her faded blue robe tighter and made her way to the kitchen, where she'd prepare Emma's lunch and her own coffee, the cheap instant kind that tasted like bitterness and broken promises, but kept her awake through double shifts at Miller's Diner. At 35, Sarah looked older than her years. The mirror in the hallway reflected a woman with kind eyes shadowed by exhaustion, brown hair that she hadn't had time to style in months, and hands roughened by dishwater and hard work. But there was something else there, too. A stubborn light that refused to go out. A determination that had carried her through 3 years of single motherhood after her husband, Marcus, had walked out without warning, leaving nothing but debt and silence. She measured the instant coffee carefully. 1 spoonful, not 2. Everything had to stretch. Everything had to last. The electric bill was due in 5 days, and she was $17 short. $17. Such a small number to carry such weight. She'd figure it out. She always did. Maybe Jerry, her manager, would let her pick up an extra shift this weekend. Maybe Mrs. Patterson downstairs would need her apartment cleaned again. Maybe. The coffee maker sputtered to life as Sarah moved to the refrigerator, pulling out the ingredients for Emma's lunch. 2 slices of wheat bread, the day-old kind from the discount rack. Peanut butter, carefully spread to cover every corner so Emma wouldn't notice there wasn't any jelly. An apple slightly bruised on one side, which Sarah carefully cut away. A small bag of carrot sticks, and a note, which she wrote fresh every single morning. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. I love you to the moon and back. Have a wonderful day, my sunshine. Mom. Sarah folded the note into a small square and tucked it into the brown paper bag alongside Emma's lunch. These notes were her way of being present during the hours she couldn't be there, during the long afternoons when Emma came home to an empty apartment because Sarah was working the evening shift, during the parent-teacher conferences Sarah had to miss, during the school performances she couldn't attend because she couldn't afford to lose the wages. The guilt was a constant companion, sitting heavy on her chest like a stone. What kind of mother couldn't be there for her child? What kind of mother had to choose between keeping the lights on and attending a school play? But even as these thoughts circled, Sarah pushed them down. She didn't have the luxury of guilt. She only had the luxury of getting through one more day. At 5:15 a.m., she heard the familiar sound, Emma's small footsteps padding down the hallway. Sarah turned to see her daughter standing in the kitchen doorway, her brown hair a wild halo around her face, clutching the stuffed rabbit Sarah had given her when she was 3. Even at 8 years old, Emma still slept with Mr. Hoppers every single night. Morning, sweetheart, Sarah said, opening her arms. Emma ran into them, still warm from sleep, and Sarah held her close, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and innocence. These morning hugs were sacred. These were the moments that made everything else bearable. Did you sleep well? Sarah asked, smoothing down Emma's hair. Emma nodded against her mother's chest, then looked up with those wide brown eyes that saw too much, understood too much for a child her age. Mom, you're working the late shift again tonight, aren't you? Sarah's heart squeezed. Just until 9, baby. Mrs. Chen next door said she'd check on you at dinner time, and you know the rules. Doors locked, no answering for strangers, homework done, vegetables eaten, Bed by 8:30, Emma recited, her voice matter-of-fact. She'd been through this routine so many times it had become second nature. "That's my smart girl," Sarah said, kissing the top of her head. But behind her smile, her heart was breaking. No 8-year-old should know this routine so well. No child should have to be this independent, this understanding, this grown-up. They ate breakfast together, oatmeal with a sprinkle of brown sugar, shared from one bowl to make washing up easier. Emma talked about school, about her friend Jennifer's upcoming birthday party, about the new music teacher who was starting a strings program, and how Emma wished she could learn to play the violin. Sarah listened, nodding and smiling, even as she mentally calculated the cost of a rental violin lessons and knew it was impossible. Music lessons were for children whose parents had savings accounts and stable jobs, not for children whose mothers counted pennies and prayed the car would last another month. "Maybe someday, sweetheart," Sarah said softly, hating the way Emma's face tried not to show disappointment. "It's okay, Mom," Emma said quickly, her voice bright, too bright. "I don't really need it. I was just wondering." And there it was. That terrible, beautiful maturity that children of struggle develop. The ability to swallow disappointment and smile anyway. The understanding that sometimes love means not asking for things, no matter how much you want them. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them away quickly. At 6:45 a.m., Sarah walked Emma to the school bus stop, her own work uniform already on under her winter coat, the navy blue coat she'd bought from the Goodwill 3 years ago, its hem coming undone on one side, its zipper temperamental. She waited with Emma until the bus appeared, gave her one more hug, and watched the yellow bus carry her daughter away. Then Sarah Mitchell squared her shoulders, pulled her coat tight against the December wind, and headed to the diner for the first of 2 shifts that would keep her on her feet for 14 hours straight. She thought about Emma's face when she'd mentioned the violin. She thought about the electric bill. She thought about the apartment's leaking ceiling she couldn't afford to fix. But most of all, she thought about getting through today. And then tomorrow. And then the next day after that, one foot in front of the other. One shift at a time. One breath at a time. She didn't know that by the end of this day, everything would change. She didn't know that the coat she wore, the one with the broken zipper and undone hem, would become the bridge between her world of struggle and someone else's world of plenty. She didn't know that inside her pocket, a letter Emma had secretly placed would soon be read by a stranger whose heart was searching for meaning. All Sarah knew was that she had to keep going, for Emma. Always for Emma. That was enough. It had to be enough. The morning rush at Miller's Diner was relentless. Sarah moved between tables with mechanical efficiency, coffee here, pancakes there, checking on orders, clearing plates, smiling even when her feet screamed for rest. The diner smelled like bacon grease and maple syrup, sounds of clattering dishes and conversation filling the air. "Order up, Sarah," Jerry called from the kitchen window. She grabbed the plates, 2 breakfast specials with hash browns, and delivered them to table 6, where an elderly couple sat holding hands across the worn formica surface. They came every Tuesday and Thursday, always ordered the same thing, always left her a $3 tip. Sarah appreciated them more than they'd ever know. The morning blurred into afternoon. Her feet ached. Her back throbbed. She'd been on her feet for 6 hours straight, with only one 10-minute break to wolf down a piece of toast in the back room. But she kept moving, kept smiling, kept going. At 2:30 p.m., during the brief lull between lunch and dinner rushes, Sarah finally had a moment to breathe. She collapsed into the corner booth, the one with the cracked red vinyl seat, and closed her eyes for just a moment. Just 30 seconds of peace. That's when she remembered the parent-teacher conference form in her purse. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, wanted to meet next Thursday at 3 p.m., right in the middle of Sarah's shift. She'd have to ask Jerry for time off, which meant losing those hours, which meant less money for groceries. But it was Emma's education. It mattered. Sarah pulled out her phone to check her bank balance, a ritual that always made her stomach clench. 127 tons at 7 tons at 43 cents. The electric bill was $84. That left $43 for groceries, gas, and everything else until her next paycheck in 5 days. She'd make it work. She always did. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Home safe. Mrs. Mon. Chen brought me soup. I love you, Mama." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She quickly typed back, I love you more than all the stars, baby. Homework first, then you can watch one show. I'll be home at 9:30. Zoe. She allowed herself one more minute of rest, then stood up, smoothed down her uniform, and went back to work. The afternoon shift was always slower, giving her time to think, sometimes too much time. Her mind wandered to bills, to Emma's growing feet that would need new shoes soon, to the strange sound the car was making that probably meant an expensive repair she couldn't afford. At 4 p.m. something unusual happened. A man walked into the diner, not unusual in itself, except that he clearly didn't belong there. He wore an expensive charcoal suit, carried a leather briefcase, and had the kind of polished appearance that suggested money, lots of it. He looked around the diner with curious eyes, then took a seat at the counter. Sarah approached him with her order pad and her professional smile. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you?" The man looked up, and Sarah found herself meeting eyes that were tired, despite their sharp intelligence. He was perhaps in his late 30s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, and an expression that seemed to carry its own weight of sadness. "Just coffee, please," he said quietly. "Black. Coming right up." Sarah poured his coffee and set it before him, then moved to check on her other tables. But something made her glance back at the stranger. He sat staring into his coffee cup, as if it held answers to questions he was afraid to ask. There was a loneliness in his posture that Sarah recognized. She saw it in her own mirror often enough. For the next hour, he sat there, nursing that single cup of coffee, occasionally checking his phone, but mostly just staring at nothing. Sarah refilled his cup twice without being asked, and each time he looked up with a small, grateful nod. At 5:15 p.m., Sarah's shift ended. She grabbed her time card, clocked out, and headed to the back room to get her coat and purse. She had exactly 30 minutes to grab a quick dinner from the dollar menu next door before her evening shift started at Miller's sister restaurant, across town, a smaller diner that stayed open until midnight. She pulled on her navy coat, the one with the broken zipper that she had to hold closed with her hand when the wind was strong. As she hurried out the back door into the alley, her mind was already racing a head drive to the other location, change into the other uniform, start the dinner rush. What Sarah didn't notice in her hurry was that her coat pocket had a hole in it, worn through by 3 years of use. And what she didn't know was that Emma had slipped something into that pocket this morning while Sarah was in the shower. A letter Emma had written the night before, meant to be mailed to the North Pole but placed in her mother's coat instead, hoping somehow the magic would work faster. The letter slipped through the hole as Sarah rushed to her car, falling silently onto the alley pavement behind the diner. Sarah drove across town, worked the evening shift in a blur of exhaustion, and didn't get home until 9:45 p.m. Emma was already asleep, her homework neatly completed on the kitchen table, a drawing of a violin beside it. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, changed into her pajamas, and fell into bed without even checking her coat pockets. She didn't know that her coat was still hanging on the hook in the back room of Miller's diner. She didn't know that tomorrow, in her exhausted rush, she'd grab Emma's lighter jacket instead, not realizing her mistake until the cold bit through. And she didn't know that the stranger in the expensive suit, David Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies, a man worth millions who'd come to this neighborhood diner searching for something he couldn't name, had seen her coat hanging there. He'd come back after hours to return his mother's favorite cookbook to the owner, Jerry, who'd found it in her belongings after she passed away 2 months ago. David Chen stood in the empty diner's back room, his mother's cookbook in hand, when he noticed the navy blue coat hanging on the hook. Something made him check it, perhaps to see if there was an ID, perhaps to see if he could return it to its owner. His hand found the inner pocket. Inside was a folded piece of paper, covered in a child's careful handwriting. He almost put it back. It wasn't his to read, but something grief, curiosity, the desperate search for meaning that had consumed him since his mother's death, made him unfold it. The letter read, "Dear Santa, my name is Emma Mitchell, and I am 8 years old. I have been very good this year. I help my mom and I do all my homework, and I don't complain even when I'm sad. I know you bring toys to good children, but I don't want toys this year. I want something else instead. Could you please help my mom stop crying at night? She thinks I don't hear her, but I do. She cries in the bathroom with the water running so I won't know. But I always know. Could you make it so she doesn't have to work 2 jobs? She's so tired all the time and her feet hurt and she tries to hide it, but I can tell. Could you maybe bring her a friend? She doesn't have any friends because she's always working. Everyone should have a friend. And if it's not too much, could I maybe learn violin? There's a new music program at school, but it costs money, and I know we don't have extra money, so I didn't ask Mom. But I really love music, and I think it would make me happy. But the most important thing is Mom. Please help my mom. She's the best mom in the whole world, and she deserves good things. I will leave you extra cookies this year. Love, Emma. P.S. We don't have a chimney, but you can use the front door. Mom always leaves it unlocked for emergencies. David Chen stood in the empty diner, a letter from a child he'd never met in his hands, and for the first time since his mother died, he felt something break open in his chest. Tears he'd been holding back for 8 weeks fell freely down his face. He thought of his own mother, a woman who'd worked 3 jobs to put him through college, who'd sacrificed everything so he could have the education that led to his success. He thought of how he'd been so busy building his empire that he'd missed her final months, too consumed with board meetings and acquisitions to notice she was fading. He thought of the hole in his life that all his money couldn't fill, the desperate search for purpose that had brought him to this neighborhood, to this diner, seeking some connection to the humble places his mother had loved. And now, here in his hands, was a child's wish for her mother, a wish that mirrored everything his mother had wanted for him, a wish he could actually grant. David carefully folded the letter and placed it in his pocket. Then he took out his phone and made a call to his assistant. Margaret, I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out everything you can about a woman named Sarah Mitchell. She works at Miller's Diner in the South District. I need to know her situation, her background, but discreetly, very discreetly. Can you do that? He listened to her confirmation, then added, And Margaret, this is personal. This stays between us. David hung up and stood there in the empty diner for a long moment, his mother's cookbook in one hand, a child's letter in the other. For the first time since the funeral, he felt something like purpose stirring in his chest. He didn't know exactly what he was going to do yet, but he knew this. Sarah Mitchell and her daughter Emma had just become the most important project of his life. Not because he needed another charitable tax write-off, not because it would look good for his company's image, but because, somewhere, somehow, this was the answer to the question he'd been asking since his mother died. How do I honor her? How do I become the man she raised me to be? The answer had been written in a child's careful handwriting, hidden in a forgotten coat, waiting to be found. David Chen left the diner that night with a mission, and Sarah Mitchell slept unaware that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine, all because of a letter she didn't know existed, in a coat she'd forgotten, discovered by a stranger whose broken heart was searching for a way to heal. Sometimes miracles arrive in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes hope hides in pockets we forgot to check. And sometimes the answer to one person's prayer becomes the salvation of another person's soul. The coat hung forgotten on its hook, its job complete, having served as the bridge between 2 worlds that desperately needed to meet. David Chen didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse apartment, surrounded by luxury that felt increasingly hollow. Emma's letter spread on the glass coffee table before him. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights sparkled like fallen stars. But all he could see was a little girl writing to Santa, because her mother cried at night. His assistant, Margaret Torres, called him at 8 a.m. sharp, as requested. Margaret had been with him for 12 years, had seen him build Gen Technologies from a startup to a multinational corporation, and had never heard him sound like this urgent, emotional, alive. I have the information you requested, Margaret said carefully. David, are you sure about this? I mean, I did what you asked, but this is unusual for you. Tell me everything, David said, pouring himself coffee he wouldn't drink. Margaret's report painted a picture that made David's chest tight. Sarah Mitchell, age 35, widowed, divorced 3 years ago. Ex-husband, Marcus Mitchell, had left her with $30,000 in debt from failed business ventures Sarah knew nothing about. She worked 2 jobs, 65 hours a week, made approximately $32,000 annually. She had no family support. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19, and she'd aged out of foster care before that. No siblings, no safety net. Her daughter Emma Mitchell, age 8, honor roll student at Riverside Elementary, Teacher notes indicated she was bright, creative, kind to others, but often seemed tired. No behavioral problems. Participated in the free lunch program. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the South District, rent $1,400 a month. Sarah's car was a 2009 Honda Civic with 187,000 miles. Her credit score was poor due to her ex-husband's debts, which she was slowly paying off despite not being legally obligated to do so. Her lawyer had advised bankruptcy, but Sarah refused, saying it wasn't right. "There's more," Margaret said quietly. Sarah Mitchell apparently used to be pre-med at the state university. She had a full academic scholarship, was top of her class, but she dropped out in her junior year when she got pregnant with Emma. The father, Marcus, promised to support them, said she could finish school after the baby was born, but that never happened. David closed his eyes. A life of potential, redirected by circumstances and then destroyed by someone's betrayal. He knew that story. His mother had lived a version of it. What else? He asked. She has no criminal record, no history of substance abuse. By all accounts, she's exactly what she appears to be. A woman working herself to the bone to give her child a decent life. The neighbors speak highly of her. Her employers say she's reliable. Never misses shifts, never complains. There's a note here from her daughter's teacher that says Emma wrote an essay about her hero. It was about her mother. David stood and walked to the window, phone pressed to his ear. 43 floors below, people rushed to work, each carrying their own struggles, their own stories. How many Sarah Mitchells were out there? How many people worked this hard and still couldn't get ahead? "I want to help her," David said finally. "But I need to do it right. She can't know who I am or why I'm doing this. Not at first. Can you set up a meeting? Tell her Chen Technologies is doing a program for single parents in the community, that she was recommended by someone who noticed her work ethic." "David, I know it's unusual," he interrupted. "But Margaret, my mother worked 3 jobs. She sacrificed everything for me. And I was so busy making money that I forgot what money was for. I forgot what she taught me. This letter." His voice cracked. "This little girl is asking Santa to help her mother. When was the last time I did something that actually mattered?" There was silence on the line, then Margaret's voice, softer now. "I'll set it up. But David, be careful. This isn't a business deal. These are real people with real feelings." "I know," David said. "That's exactly why I have to do this." 3 days later, Sarah received a phone call that confused her. A woman named Margaret Torres from Chen Technologies wanted to meet with her about an employment opportunity. Sarah almost hung up, thinking it was a scam. But Margaret's professional tone and the fact that she could verify real details about Sarah's work history made her pause. "How did you get my name?" Sarah asked suspiciously. "We've been reviewing candidates for a new community outreach program," Margaret explained. "Your name came to our attention through your exemplary work record and commitment to your family. We'd just like to meet with you, discuss an opportunity. No pressure, no obligations, just a conversation." Sarah wanted to say no. She didn't have time for mysterious meetings. But the words employment opportunity nagged at her. What if it was real? What if it could mean more money, better hours, a chance to actually be there for Emma? "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow afternoon. I know it's short notice. We have an opening at 2 o'clock. We can meet at the Riverside Café. Neutral ground. Just a conversation." Sarah did the mental math. She could potentially switch shifts with Linda, who owed her a favor. "Okay," she said finally. 2 o'clock. "But if this is some kind of sales pitch," "It's not," Margaret assured her. "I promise you, Ms. Mitchell, this is legitimate. We'll see you tomorrow." That night, Sarah told Emma about the meeting, trying not to get her hopes up or Emma's. "What kind of job, Mama?" Emma asked, looking up from her math homework. "I don't know, sweetheart. Probably nothing. But it doesn't hurt to listen." But Emma's eyes were bright with hope, and Sarah felt the familiar weight of potential disappointment settling on her shoulders. What if this was nothing? What if she was getting Emma's hopes up for no reason? The next afternoon, Sarah put on her best outfit, a simple navy dress she'd bought at a thrift store for her divorce hearing and hadn't worn since. She dropped Emma at Mrs. Spate, Jen's apartment, and drove to the Riverside Café, her stomach churning with nerves. Margaret Torres was already there, sitting at a corner table. She was a professional-looking woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile that immediately put Sarah somewhat at ease. They shook hands and Margaret ordered them coffee. "Thank you for coming," Margaret began. "I know this must seem unusual." "Very unusual," Sarah agreed, her guard still up. "Let me be direct," Margaret said. Chen Technologies is developing a new program called Community Champions. We're looking to hire people who demonstrate exceptional character and work ethic. People who might not have traditional credentials, but who embody the values our company was founded on. We want to offer them opportunities for growth, training, and career advancement. Sarah listened, skeptical but intrigued. "Your name came to our attention," Margaret continued. "You work 2 jobs. You're raising a daughter alone, you've maintained perfect attendance records at both positions, and by all accounts, you're exactly the kind of person we're looking for." "What's the catch?" Sarah asked bluntly. "People don't just hand out good jobs to waitresses with no college degree." Margaret smiled. "The catch is that we need people who understand struggle, who know what it means to work hard, who have genuine empathy for others. We're developing community programs, and we need people who understand the community we're trying to serve. Your life experience isn't a disadvantage, Miss Mitchell. It's your qualification." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them away. "What would the job be?" "Initially, you'd work in our community outreach department, helping develop programs for single parents, connecting them with resources, managing our new scholarship fund for children of working parents. The salary would be $55,000 annually to start, with full benefits, including health insurance and tuition assistance if you wanted to finish your degree." The number hit Sarah like a physical force. $55,000, that was almost double what she made now. Health insurance meant Emma could finally see a dentist. Tuition assistance meant the dream she'd buried 8 years ago might not be completely dead. "Why me?" Sarah whispered. "I don't understand why you'd choose me." Margaret reached across the table and gently touched Sarah's hand. "Because someone believes you deserve a chance. Because someone thinks your strengths and determination are exactly what this program needs. Because you're exactly the kind of person who would use this opportunity to build something better. Not just for yourself, but for your daughter and for others in your situation." Sarah sat there, coffee cooling in front of her, mind racing. It was too good to be true. It had to be. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Margaret said. "But Sarah may—" "I call you Sarah? I want you to know this is legitimate. You can look up our company, verify everything I've told you. We'd need you to start in 2 weeks. You'd have training, support, a team. You wouldn't be alone." Sarah nodded, overwhelmed. They talked for another 30 minutes, Margaret answering every question with patience and detail. When they finally stood to leave, Margaret handed Sarah a folder with information about the company and the position. "One more thing," Margaret said. "There's a small fund for employee children who show interest in music or arts. If Emma is interested in that violin program you mentioned to Jerry at the diner, we could help with that." Sarah froze. "How did you know about that?" Margaret smiled gently. "Jerry mentioned it when we called him for a reference. He speaks very highly of you, by the way. He said if anyone deserves a break, it's you." Sarah drove home in a daze, the folder on the passenger seat feeling like it might contain either salvation or another cruel disappointment. When she picked up Emma, her daughter immediately noticed something was different. "What happened, Mama? You look different." "Maybe good different," Sarah said cautiously. "Maybe very good different. But we'll see, baby. We'll see." That night, Sarah researched Chen Technologies extensively. It was real. It was successful. It was everything Margaret had said it was. The Community Champions program was new, but it was real, backed by serious funding. She read about David Chen, the CEO, young, successful, had recently lost his mother. There were articles about his mother, Grace Chen, a woman who'd worked as a seamstress and a cook, who'd sacrificed everything for her son's education. The obituary called her a woman of uncommon grace and strength. Something in that description resonated with Sarah. She felt a strange connection to this woman she'd never met. This mother who'd worked herself to exhaustion for her child's future. Sarah didn't know that David Chen had read Emma's letter. She didn't know that he'd watched her from a distance, observing her kindness with customers, her patience despite exhaustion, her grace under pressure. She didn't know that every detail of this job offer had been crafted specifically for her, designed to give her opportunity while preserving her dignity. All Sarah knew was that for the first time in 3 years, hope felt like something more than a fantasy. It felt like something she might actually be allowed to hold. She filled out the application that night, her hand shaking. She wrote her answers carefully, honestly. She didn't embellish or exaggerate, she simply told her truth. And when she lay down in bed that night, for the first time in months, Sarah didn't cry. Instead, she prayed a simple, heartfelt prayer of gratitude for possibilities, for the kindness of strangers, for the chance to give Emma a better life. In his penthouse across the city, David Chen received a notification on his phone. Sarah Mitchell had submitted her application. He opened it and read her answers, each word confirming what he'd already known. She was exactly the person he was looking for. Not because she needed saving, but because she'd never stopped fighting. Not because she was broken, but because she'd refused to break. David opened his desk drawer and pulled out Emma's letter, now carefully preserved in a protective sleeve. He read it again, this line in particular. "She's the best mom in the whole world, and she deserves good things." "She does," David whispered to the empty room. "And so do you, Emma, so do you." The wheels of change had been set in motion, but the real test was yet to come. Because helping someone isn't just about giving them money or a job. It's about preserving their dignity, honoring their strength, and understanding that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't charity. It's respect. It's the chance to stand on their own feet. Not because someone lifted them up, but because someone believed they could climb. David Chen was about to learn that lesson himself, and Sarah Mitchell was about to teach it to him even though she didn't know it yet. Sarah's first day at Chen Technologies felt surreal. The building itself was intimidating, all glass and steel and modern design, a world away from the worn vinyl booths and chipped counters of Miller's Diner. She stood in the lobby wearing her thrift store dress and clutching the folder Margaret had given her, feeling completely out of place. "Miss Mine, Mitchell?" A young woman in a crisp blazer approached with a warm smile. "I'm Jennifer from HR. Welcome to Chen Technologies. Let me show you to your office." Office. Sarah had an office. The word still felt foreign on her tongue. Jennifer led her through corridors filled with purposeful people, expensive art on the walls, everything clean and organized and professional. They stopped at a door with a nameplate that read, "Sarah Mitchell, Community Outreach Coordinator." Inside was a modest but beautiful space, a desk with a computer, a comfortable chair, a window overlooking the city. On the desk was a vase of fresh flowers and a welcome card signed by her new team members. "Take your time settling in," Jennifer said. "Margaret will meet with you at 10 for orientation. If you need anything at all, just call extension 2047. When Jennifer left, Sarah stood alone in her office and let the tears fall. She didn't try to stop them. These weren't tears of sadness or exhaustion. These were tears of relief, so profound it hurt. She pulled out her phone and took a picture, then sent it to Emma with the message, "My office, baby, or new beginning." Emma's response came immediately, "I'm so proud of you, Mama." The morning passed in a whirlwind of orientation, introductions, and information. Sarah met her team, 5 other people working on community programs, all friendly and welcoming. She learned about the company's vision, their commitment to social responsibility, their belief that success meant nothing if it didn't lift others up. At noon, Margaret appeared at her door. "How are you holding up?" "Overwhelmed," Sarah admitted, "but grateful. So grateful. You deserve this opportunity, Sarah. Don't ever doubt that." Margaret paused. "I wanted to mention something. Our CEO, David Chen, likes to meet with new employees personally. He'd like to have lunch with you today, if you're available. Nothing formal, just a chance to welcome you to the team." Sarah's stomach flipped. The CEO wanted to meet her? Today? He's in the building now. It would just be 30 minutes or so. Is that all right? Sarah smoothed her dress, suddenly hyper-aware of how out of place she must look. "Yes, of course." 20 minutes later, Sarah sat in an elegant conference room fighting nerves. When the door opened and David Chen walked in, she stood automatically, professional instinct from years of waitressing kicking in. He was younger than she expected, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes that seemed familiar somehow, though she was certain they'd never met. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but his smile was genuine, warm. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, extending his hand, "thank you for meeting with me. Please, sit." They sat across from each other, lunch already laid out. Simple sandwiches, fruit, nothing ostentatious. "I wanted to personally welcome you to Chen Technologies," David began, "and to tell you why this program means so much to me." He talked about his mother, about her sacrifices, her strength, her unwavering belief that hard work and integrity mattered. As he spoke, Sarah felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't a wealthy CEO performing charitable duty. This was a man honoring his mother's memory the only way he knew how. "When we created the Community Champions program," David continued, "we weren't looking for people with perfect resumes. We were looking for people who embodied the values my mother taught me: perseverance, kindness, the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in character." Sarah listened, moved by his honesty. "Margaret tells me you have a daughter," David said. "Emma, is that right?" "Yes," Sarah said, her face lighting up the way it always did when someone mentioned her daughter. "She's 8. She's everything to me. I understand Emma is interested in music." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. How much did these people know about her? She mentioned wanting to learn violin, but "Our Children's Enrichment Fund could help with that," David interrupted gently. "It's part of your benefits package. We believe that supporting our employees means supporting their families. If Emma is interested, we have partnerships with several excellent music schools in the area." Sarah felt tears threaten again. "Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. This is all so much. Say you'll give yourself permission to accept help," David said quietly. "Say you'll believe you deserve good things. Because you do, Miss Mitchell. Your work ethic, your dedication to your daughter, your refusal to give up even when things were impossibly hard. That's exactly the kind of character this company was built to support." Something in his words triggered a memory. Sarah tilted her head, studying him. "Can I ask you something? Why me, specifically? I mean, there must be hundreds of single parents in the city who work hard. Why did you choose me?" David held her gaze. And in that moment, Sarah saw something flicker in his eyes. A depth of emotion she didn't quite understand. "Because," he said carefully, "sometimes you meet someone, even briefly, and you recognize something in them. You recognize the same strength that someone you love possessed. My mother used to say that we honor those we've lost by helping those who remind us what they stood for. You remind me of her, Miss Mitchell. Your strength, your grace, your refusal to let circumstances define you." Sarah felt something catch in her throat. "When did she pass? Your mother?" 2 months ago, David said, his voice quiet. "Cancer. I thought I had more time. I was always so busy, you see. Always working, building, succeeding. And then suddenly, time ran out." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said, and meant it deeply. They sat in silence for a moment, two people from different worlds, connected by the universal experience of loss and love. "Mr. Chen," Sarah said finally, "I want you to know I will work harder than anyone here. I will earn this opportunity. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," David said with a smile. "But Sarah, may I call you Sarah? I also want you to know that you don't have to prove your worth. You already have worth. This isn't charity. This is an investment in exactly the kind of person this company needs. Your perspective, your experience, your understanding of struggle, that's valuable. That's what we need." As Sarah left the conference room, her mind was spinning. Something about David Chen touched her. His obvious grief, his sincerity, his desire to honor his mother's memory through meaningful action. She felt a connection to him she couldn't quite explain, a sense that maybe both of them were trying to heal from their own wounds. What Sarah didn't know was that after she left, David sat alone in the conference room for a long time, Emma's letter once again in his hands. He wanted so badly to tell Sarah the truth, to show her the letter, to explain that this all started because her daughter's words had given him purpose when he needed it most. But Margaret's words echoed in his mind. These are real people with real feelings. He had to do this right. He had to let Sarah stand on her own merit, accept this job because she earned it, not because he'd read her daughter's letter. The truth would come eventually. But not yet, not until Sarah was secure enough in her position to understand that his help came from respect, not pity. That evening, Sarah picked up Emma from Mrs. Chen's apartment, her heart so full she could barely contain it. "Mama, you look happy," Emma said, studying her mother's face. "Really happy?" "I am, baby," Sarah said, hugging her daughter tight. "I really am. And guess what? The company has a program that might be able to help you with violin lessons." Emma's eyes went wide. "Really? Really, truly?" "Really, truly. We'll look into it this weekend." That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat at her small kitchen table and did something she hadn't done in years. She planned for a future that included more than just survival. She made lists, set goals, allowed herself to dream. She thought about finishing her degree. She thought about Emma having opportunities. She thought about not crying in the bathroom anymore, not lying awake at night calculating bills, not choosing between electricity and groceries. She thought about David Chen and his mother, about loss and love and the strange ways life connects people. She thought about second chances and new beginnings, and for the first time in 3 years, Sarah Mitchell believed that maybe, just maybe, good things could happen to people like her. What she didn't know was that across the city, David Chen sat in his penthouse, looking at a framed photo of his mother, and whispered, "I'm trying, Mom. I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be." And Grace Chen, wherever she was, surely smiled, because sometimes the greatest healing comes not from receiving help, but from giving it. And sometimes the greatest gift we can receive is the opportunity to make a difference in someone else's life. The coat that had brought them together hung forgotten in a box of lost and found items at Miller's diner. But the connection it had created was just beginning to blossom into something neither Sarah nor David could have predicted. A friendship built on mutual respect, shared understanding, and the recognition that everyone, no matter how strong, needs someone to believe in them. The turning point had been reached. The journey ahead would have its challenges, its moments of doubt and difficulty. But Sarah Mitchell and David Chen had both found something they desperately needed. Sarah had found hope and opportunity, and David had found purpose and a way to honor his mother's memory. And Emma? Emma would soon learn that sometimes, when you write a letter to Santa, the magic comes from unexpected places, delivered by people who understand that the best gifts aren't the ones wrapped in paper, but the ones wrapped in dignity, respect, and genuine care. The miracle wasn't just happening, it had already begun. 3 months passed. Sarah flourished at Chen Technologies. She proved herself to be not just competent, but exceptional, developing innovative programs for single parents, creating partnerships with community organizations, earning the respect of everyone she worked with. Her ideas weren't theoretical. They came from lived experience, and they resonated. Emma started violin lessons with Mrs. Yuki Tanaka, a retired violinist who taught through the company's children's enrichment program. Twice a week, Emma would light up with joy, carefully carrying her rented violin to lessons, practicing every evening with dedication that amazed Sarah. For the first time in years, their lives had stability. Sarah could pay bills on time. Emma could get new shoes when she needed them, not when they literally fell apart. They moved to a better apartment, still modest, but warm, safe, with walls that didn't have cracks and a heater that worked reliably. But something unexpected was happening too. Sarah and David had become friends. It started professionally, David checking in on her programs, offering guidance, supporting her initiatives. But gradually, their conversations extended beyond work. They'd sometimes have coffee in the company cafeteria, talking about books, about their philosophies on life, about loss and healing. David talked about his mother, his regret at not spending more time with her, his search for meaning in the wake of her death. Sarah talked about Emma, about the challenges of single parenthood, about her dreams deferred but not destroyed. They never crossed professional boundaries, but there was an ease between them, a comfort that came from shared understanding. David saw in Sarah the same strength his mother possessed. Sarah saw in David a kindness that wealth hadn't corrupted. She still didn't know about the letter. David had tried to tell her several times, but the moment never felt right. He worried she'd feel deceived, that she'd think her job wasn't legitimately earned. The longer he waited, the harder it became to find the right words. Then came the spring recital. Mrs. Brang, Tanaka's students were performing at the Riverside Community Center, and Emma was terrified and excited in equal measure. She'd been practicing a simple piece, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, with variations for weeks. "What if I mess up?" Emma asked, the morning of the recital, her small hands trembling as she held her violin. "Then you mess up," Sarah said gently, "and you keep going anyway. That's what courage is, baby. Not being fearless, but doing the thing that scares you anyway." That afternoon, Sarah sat in the community center's small auditorium, her heart in her throat. She'd asked for the afternoon off, and Margaret had granted it immediately. What Sarah didn't expect was to see David Chen walk into the auditorium and take a seat 2 rows behind her. She turned, surprised. "Mr. Chen, what are you doing here?" David smiled. "I hope you don't mind. Margaret mentioned Emma's recital, and I wanted to support you both, if that's all right." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Her boss, this important, successful man, had taken time from his undoubtedly busy schedule to attend her daughter's first violin recital. "That's very kind of you," she managed to say. They sat together as the recital began, watching young children of varying skill levels perform. Some were polished and confident, others were nervous and made mistakes. The audience clapped warmly for all of them. Then it was Emma's turn. She walked onto the small stage, looking tiny and brave. Her violin tucked under her chin, she found her mother in the audience, and Sarah gave her an encouraging smile and a thumbs up. Emma began to play. The first few notes were shaky, uncertain. Then she found a rhythm, and something beautiful happened. The simple melody filled the room, played with the earnest sincerity only a child can bring to music. It wasn't perfect. There were a few squeaky notes, one part where she had to restart, but it was heartfelt, genuine, beautiful in its imperfection. Sarah cried openly, not caring who saw. This was her daughter, her brilliant, brave daughter, playing music, making beauty, becoming something more than circumstances suggested she could be. And beside her, David Chen cried too, thinking of his own mother, of sacrifices made and dreams deferred, of the power of opportunity to transform lives. When Emma finished, the applause was thunderous. Emma bowed, her face flushed with pride and relief, and ran off stage. The moment the recital ended, she rushed to her mother, and Sarah scooped her up in a fierce hug. "You were amazing," Sarah whispered. So amazing." "Did you see me, Mama? I did it. I saw you, baby. I saw every beautiful moment." When Sarah set Emma down, David stepped forward, his expression warm. "Emma, I'm David Chen. I work with your mother. That was a wonderful performance." Emma looked at him with curious eyes. "Thank you, sir. Are you my mom's boss?" "I suppose I am," David said with a smile. "But more importantly, I'm her friend, and I'm very proud of both of you." Later, as they walked to Sarah's car, Sarah had driven the newer used car she'd been able to afford with her increased salary. David walked with them. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said sincerely. "It meant a lot to both of us." "Sarah," David said, stopping. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago." Sarah paused, sensing something significant in his tone. "What is it?" David took a deep breath. "Do you remember the coat you left at Miller's Diner? The navy one?" Sarah nodded, confused. "Yes, I got it back eventually. Jerry had it in the lost and found. Why? Before you got it back, I found it, and inside it I found a letter." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Emma's letter, carefully preserved. "I found this." Sarah took the envelope, and as she read Emma's handwriting, her face went pale. "Oh my God! Emma, you wrote this?" Emma, who had been listening with growing interest, nodded. "I put it in your coat pocket before school one day. I thought maybe Santa would find it somehow." Sarah read the letter, tears streaming down her face. Every word was a dagger to her heart. The knowledge that Emma had heard her crying, the selfless wishes, the concern for her mother above all else. When she looked up at David, understanding dawned in her eyes. This is why. The job, the violin lessons, all of it. This is why you found me. "Yes," David said quietly. "But Sarah, please understand. I didn't offer you the job out of pity. I offered it because Emma's letter reminded me what my mother stood for, what she would have wanted me to do. And when I researched you, when I saw your work ethic, your character, your strength, I knew you deserved this opportunity. Not because you needed help, but because you'd earned it through years of determination and grace. Sarah stood there, the letter in her shaking hands, emotions warring inside her. Part of her felt betrayed, manipulated, but another part recognized the truth in his words, saw the genuine respect in his eyes. "You should have told me," she said, her voice tight. "I know. I'm sorry. I was afraid you'd refuse if you knew. I was afraid you'd think the job wasn't real, wasn't earned. But Sarah, you've more than proven yourself these past 3 months. You've created programs that are genuinely helping people. You brought ideas and perspectives that have made our company better. None of that was because of charity. That was all you." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mama, are you mad?" Sarah looked down at her daughter, then at David, then at the letter in her hands. She thought about the past 3 months, the confidence she'd built, the skills she'd developed, the respect she'd earned. She thought about Emma's violin lessons, about the stability they now had, about the future that had opened up before them. "I'm not mad," she said finally. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm grateful, and I wish you told me sooner. But I understand why you didn't." She looked at David directly. "But I need you to understand something too. I'm not a project. I'm not a charity case. I'm a person who works hard and deserves respect." "I know that," David said earnestly. "I've always known that. That's exactly why I wanted to help, not to save you, but to give you the platform you deserved. My mother used to say that helping someone isn't about making them dependent. It's about giving them the tools to build their own success. That's what I hope to do." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Then she looked at Emma. "Baby, what do you think about all this?" Emma considered seriously. I think Mr. Chen is like Santa, but real. And I think he helped us because he's a good person, not because we're not good enough on our own." Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah felt something release in her chest, the defensive pride that poverty had built up over years, the fear that accepting help meant admitting defeat. "You're right, sweetheart," Sarah said softly. Then to David, "Thank you for seeing us, for helping us, for giving me a chance to prove what I could do, and for caring enough about a letter from a little girl to do something about it." David's eyes were wet. "Thank you for letting me be part of your journey, for showing me that wealth without purpose is just numbers on a screen, for reminding me what my mother tried to teach me, that the best investment we can make is in each other." The 3 people whose lives had intersected in the most unexpected way, bound together by a letter, a coat, and the recognition that sometimes the greatest gift we can give or receive is the belief that we deserve good things. "So what happens now?" Sarah asked. David smiled. "Now you keep being excellent at your job, Emma keeps playing violin, and maybe we keep being friends, real friends built on honesty." Sarah nodded. "I'd like that." Emma, ever practical, piped up, "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Both adults laughed, the tension breaking. "Yes," Sarah said. "Ice cream sounds perfect." As they walked to a nearby ice cream shop, David, insisting on treating Sarah, felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. Her life hadn't magically become perfect. She still had challenges ahead, still had bills to pay and responsibilities to meet. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had a job she loved, a daughter who was thriving, and a friend who had shown her that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat at her kitchen table and looked at the letter again. She cried as she read it, but these were different tears, not tears of despair, but of gratitude for a daughter so loving, so selfless. She picked up her phone and called David. "I just wanted to say thank you again," she said when he answered. "And to tell you something, your mother would be proud of you. What you did, what you're doing, that's honoring her memory in the most beautiful way possible." There was silence on the line. Then David's voice, thick with emotion. "Thank you, Sarah. That means more than you know. And David, I'm going to pay it forward. Someday, when I'm able, I'm going to help someone else the way you helped us. Not just with money, but with belief, with respect, with the understanding that everyone deserves a chance." "I know you will," David said. "That's who you are." They talked for a while longer. And when Sarah finally hung up, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just hope for the future, but confidence in her ability to shape it. The truth had been revealed, and rather than destroying what they built, it had strengthened it. Because real friendship isn't built on pretense or perfection. It's built on honesty, mutual respect, and the understanding that we all need each other. Sarah Mitchell had learned that accepting help with dignity was its own form of strength. David Chen had learned that giving help with respect was its own form of wealth. And Emma had learned that sometimes magic is real, it just comes disguised as kindness. Delivered through the hands of people who choose to care, the code had served its purpose, bringing together two people who needed each other in ways they hadn't known. And the letter it had carried would forever remind them that the most powerful prayers are often the simplest ones. Please help someone I love. That prayer had been answered. But more than that, it had set in motion a chain of kindness that would ripple outward, touching lives beyond Sarah and Emma and David, creating a legacy of compassion that would last far longer than any of them could imagine. Sometimes all it takes is one person choosing to see another person's worth. One act of genuine kindness. One letter carried in a forgotten coat pocket. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world. 1 year later, Sarah stood in front of a room full of single parents at the Riverside Community Center, her heart full. She was presenting the new Second Chances program, a comprehensive support system for single parents that included job training, childcare assistance, financial literacy classes, and mentorship. It was her program, her vision, brought to life with Chen technology support. But more than that, it was her tribute to everyone who had struggled the way she had. Everyone who worked themselves to exhaustion and still couldn't get ahead. Everyone who needed not charity, but opportunity. In the back of the room, David sat quietly, watching Sarah command the space with confidence born from experience. Beside him sat Emma, now 9 years old, clutching her violin case. She progressed remarkably in the past year and will be performing at the program's opening ceremony. "My name is Sarah Mitchell," she began, her voice steady and warm. "A year ago, I was working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet, wondering how I was going to give my daughter a decent life. I know what it's like to cry in the bathroom so your child won't hear. I know what it's like to choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries. I know what it's like to feel invisible, like the world has decided you don't matter." The room was silent, every person recognizing their own story in Sarah's words. "But here's what else I know," Sarah continued. "I know that you are not invisible. I know that your struggle doesn't define your worth. I know that you deserve opportunities, respect, and support. This program exists because someone believed that about me when I couldn't believe it about myself. And now, I want to believe it about you." She explained the program's components: job placement assistance, skills training, financial counseling, legal aid for custody and debt issues, and a mentorship system connecting participants with professionals in their desired fields. "This isn't charity," Sarah emphasized. "This is investment. Investment in people who have already proven they know how to work hard, how to sacrifice, how to persist. We're not here to save you. We're here to provide the tools and support that might help you save yourselves." After the presentation, people lined up to speak with Sarah, to ask questions, to sign up. She listened to each story with genuine attention, offering encouragement, taking notes, making connections. This was what she was meant to do. This was where all her pain and struggle had been leading. Emma's violin performance was beautiful. She played Amazing Grace, her teacher's choice, because it represented transformation and hope. As the last note faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Afterward, as people mingled and shared refreshments, an older woman approached Sarah. She looked tired, worn down by life, but her eyes held determination. "Ms. Mitchell, my name is Rosa Garcia. I have 3 children, and I've been working as a housekeeper for 12 years. I never finished high school, but I'm smart. I know I am. I've never had the chance to prove it." Sarah took Rosa's hands in hers. "Then let's give you that chance. Tell me what you dream of doing." As Rosa talked about wanting to become a nurse, about how she'd helped her own mother during her illness, and discovered a calling, Sarah thought about her own journey. She thought about the coat, the letter, the unexpected kindness that had changed everything. "We can help you get your GED," Sarah said. "Then we have partnerships with nursing programs. It won't be easy, but if you're willing to work hard, we're willing to support you every step of the way." Rosa began to cry. "Why? Why would you help me?" "Because someone helped me," Sarah said simply. "And because you deserve it. Because your children deserve to see their mother achieve her dreams. Because the world needs more nurses with your heart and dedication." Across the room, David watched this interaction and felt his mother's presence so strongly it took his breath away. This was what she would have wanted. Not monuments in her name, not foundations with plaques, but real people, helping real people, paying forward the kindness that had been shown to them. He pulled out his phone and opened the photo he kept there, his mother's face, smiling, full of life. "We did it, Mom," he whispered. "We're doing it." Later that evening, Sarah, David, and Emma had dinner together at a small Italian restaurant, a tradition they developed over the past year. They'd become a sort of chosen family, bound not by blood but by shared values and mutual care. "I'm proud of you," David said to Sarah over pasta. "What you've built, what you're doing, it's remarkable." "What we've built," Sarah corrected. "None of this would exist without your support." "It wouldn't exist without your vision and experience," David countered. "I provided resources. You provided the heart." Emma looked between them and grinned. "You're both being silly. You're both awesome. Can we just agree on that?" They laughed, and Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. This sense of family, of belonging, of purpose, this was wealth. This was what mattered. "Can I tell you something?" Sarah said after a moment. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. Sometimes I wake up afraid it's all going to disappear." David leaned forward, his expression serious. "It's not going to disappear, Sarah. You earned this, you built this, and even if, God forbid, something happened to Chen Technologies tomorrow, you'd still have your skills, your experience, your network. You'd still be the woman who built a program that's changing lives. That can't be taken away." Sarah nodded, letting his words sink in. He was right. She wasn't the same woman who'd left her coat at the diner a year ago. She'd grown, evolved, become someone who not only survived, but thrived. "What about you?" Sarah asked David. "Has any of this helped with your grief?" David was quiet for a moment, considering. "It has. My mother's death taught me that we don't have unlimited time to become the people we want to be, to do the things that matter. Your letter, Emma." He looked at the girl with affection. "It gave me a roadmap. It showed me what my mother would have wanted me to do with my success. Not hoard it, not just donate to faceless charities, but invest it in people. Build relationships. Actually care." "Your mother must have been an amazing woman," Sarah said softly. "She was," David agreed. "Like you." Emma, ever the wise child, raised her water glass. "To amazing moms, and to people who help amazing moms, and to violins and second chances, and," she paused, thinking, "and to coats with letters in them." They clinked their glasses together, smiling. "To coats with letters in them," Sarah echoed, thinking about how one small forgotten item had become the vehicle for such profound change. Over the next months, the Second Chances program flourished. Rosa Garcia did indeed get her GED, then enrolled in a nursing program with a full scholarship funded by Chen Technologies. 23 other participants found meaningful employment in fields they'd only dreamed about. 15 completed GED programs. 8 enrolled in college courses. But beyond the statistics were the stories. Maria, who'd been homeless, now had an apartment and a job as a paralegal. James, a single father of 2, completed a coding boot camp and got hired as a junior developer. Keisha, who'd been trapped in an abusive relationship, got legal help, found safe housing, and started her own small catering business. Each person who succeeded became a mentor for the next person, creating a network of support that extended far beyond what Sarah or David could have imagined. One afternoon, Sarah received an email that made her cry. It was from Emma's third-grade teacher from 2 years ago, Mrs. Rodriguez. "Dear Sarah, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out because I recently heard about the Second Chances program you've developed, and I had to tell you how proud I am. I still remember our parent-teacher conference when Emma was in my class. when you rushed in during your lunch break, apologizing for being late, clearly exhausted. I remember thinking then that Emma had the best kind of mother, one who fought for her child, who sacrificed everything to give her opportunities. I'm so glad to see that someone finally fought for you too. And I'm even more glad to see what you've done with that opportunity. You're changing lives, Sarah. Never forget that. With admiration, Mrs. Rodriguez Sarah forwarded the email to David with a simple message. Look what we started. His reply came immediately. Look what you're building. I'm honored to be part of it. On the first anniversary of Sarah's hiring, Chen Technologies threw a celebration. The company had expanded the Community Champions program to 3 other cities, all modeled on Sarah's work. She'd been promoted to Director of Community Outreach, with a salary that allowed her to not just survive, but save for Emma's college education. During the celebration, David asked Sarah to come to his office. When she arrived, he handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a check made out to the Second Chances program, a donation of $1 million. Sarah's hand shook. "David, this is too much." "It's not," he interrupted. "It's an investment in you, in the program, in the lives you're changing. My mother left me money, but she also left me a responsibility to use it well. This is me using it well." Sarah set the check down and hugged him, something they'd rarely done. "Thank you for everything, for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving me the chance to become who I was meant to be." "Thank you," David said, his voice thick, "for showing me what wealth really means, for teaching me that the best investments aren't in stocks or real estate, but in people, for letting me honor my mother's memory in a way that actually matters." They stood there for a moment, 2 people who had saved each other in different ways, both grateful beyond words. That evening, Sarah and Emma sat together in their apartment, the nicer one they'd moved to, with heat that worked and windows that didn't leak. Emma was practicing violin, and Sarah was reviewing applications for the Second Chances program. "Mama," Emma said, pausing mid-piece, "do you remember when I wrote that letter to Santa?" Sarah smiled. "I do, baby. Why?" "I was thinking, maybe I should write another one, to say thank you." "I think that's a beautiful idea," Sarah said. "What would you say?" Emma thought for a moment. "I'd say, thank you for sending Mr. Chen to find my letter. Thank you for giving Mama a job where she doesn't cry anymore. Thank you for my violin and for Mrs. Tanaka. And I'd say that I learned something important." "What's that?" "That magic is real, but it looks like people helping people. And that the best gifts aren't things, they're chances. Chances to be better, to do better, to help other people get chances too." Sarah felt tears stream down her face. "When did you get so wise?" Emma grinned. "I learned from the best." That night, Sarah wrote in her journal a practice she'd started at David's suggestion, a way to process and preserve her journey. "1 year ago, I was drowning. Tonight, I'm teaching others to swim. The coat is just a coat now, hanging in my closet. Its zipper still broken, its hem still undone. But it will always be sacred to me, a reminder that sometimes the things we forget, the things we lose, become the bridges to our salvation." Emma's letter saved me, but more than that, it saved David too. It gave him purpose when he was lost in grief. It reminded him what his mother stood for. It connected 3 broken pieces, his loss, my struggle, Emma's hope, and made them whole. I've learned that accepting help isn't weakness. I've learned that giving help isn't charity. I've learned that we save each other, in small ways and large, through kindness and connection, and the choice to see each other's worth. I've learned that I am not alone, that Emma is not alone, that Rosa and Maria and James and Keisha and all the others, none of us are alone. We are connected by our struggles and elevated by our choices to help each other rise. This is what it means to be human. This is what it means to matter. This is the legacy I want to leave Emma, not money, not things, but this understanding that we are responsible for each other. And when we embrace that responsibility with dignity and respect, we create miracles. The coat brought us together. Love keeps us together. And hope, beautiful, persistent hope, carries us forward. I am Sarah Mitchell. I am a mother, a friend, a director, a believer. I am someone who was helped, and who now helps others. I am someone who knows what it means to struggle, and what it means to overcome. I am enough. I have always been enough. It just took the kindness of a stranger and the love of my daughter to help me see it. Thank you, Emma, for your letter. Thank you, David, for finding it. Thank you, Grace Chen, for raising a son who honors your memory through action. Thank you to everyone who showed me kindness when I had nothing to offer in return except my gratitude. I will pay it forward. For the rest of my life, I will pay it forward. This I promise. 5 years later, the Second Chances program had expanded to 12 cities. Sarah had been featured in national news articles, had spoken at conferences, had become a recognized voice for innovative social programs. Emma was 13, an accomplished young violinist, considering a music conservatory for high school. David had remarried a kind woman named Lisa, who worked in education and shared his passion for social justice. They had a daughter, Grace, named after David's mother. But through all the changes, all the growth, the core remained the same. Sarah, David, and Emma, connected by a coat, a letter, and the understanding that we save each other. On the 5th anniversary of the program, they returned to Miller's Diner, the place where it all began. Jerry was still there, older now, proud of what his waitress had become. They sat in the corner booth, the one with the cracked red vinyl, and ordered coffee and pie. "Do you ever think about that day?" Emma asked. "The day you left your coat?" Sarah smiled. "All the time, baby. All the time. Do you think it was fate?" David wondered. "That your coat was left at that exact diner? That I happened to come back? That I found the letter?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't think it was fate. I think it was grace. The kind that comes when someone chooses kindness. The kind that ripples outward, touching lives we'll never even know about." Emma pulled something from her backpack, a framed copy of her original letter, now a cherished artifact displayed in the Second Chances program office. "I'm glad I wrote it," she said. "Even though it was scary to ask for help. Even though I thought nobody would hear." "Someone always hears," David said gently. "Maybe not Santa, maybe not God, maybe not the universe. But people hear. When we're brave enough to express our needs, when we're honest about our struggles, people hear, and some of them, the special ones, they act." They sat together in comfortable silence, 3 people who had saved each other, who continued to save others, who understood that wealth isn't what you have, but what you give, and who you become in the process of giving. The coat hung in Sarah's closet, a sacred relic. But its true legacy wasn't fabric and thread. Its legacy was in the hundreds of lives changed, the families lifted, the hope restored. Its legacy was in Rosa, now a registered nurse working in pediatrics. In Maria, who'd completed law school and now provided free legal services to domestic violence survivors. In James, who'd started a non-profit teaching coding to at-risk youth. Its legacy was in Emma, who understood that asking for help wasn't weakness, and in Sarah, who understood that accepting help with dignity was strength, and in David, who understood that wealth without purpose is just numbers on a screen. The coat's legacy was in the understanding that we are all connected, all responsible for each other, all capable of creating miracles through simple acts of kindness and respect. Sarah looked at her daughter and her dear friend and felt grateful beyond words, not just for what they'd given her, but for what they'd allowed her to become. A mother who could provide, a professional who could lead, a woman who could dream, a human being who mattered. And in the end, that's what every person deserves: to matter, to be seen, to be valued, to be given the chance to become who they're meant to be. This is the story of a coat, a letter, and a miracle. But more than that, it's the story of what happens when we choose to see each other's humanity, when we choose kindness over indifference, when we choose to believe that everyone, no matter their circumstances, deserves dignity, respect, and opportunity. This is the story of Sarah and Emma and David, but it's also your story, because every one of us has the power to be someone's miracle. Every one of us can choose to see, to care, to act. Every one of us can be the answer to someone's prayer. All it takes is the courage to see, the compassion to care, and the commitment to act. That's the lesson. That's the gift. That's the miracle. And it's available to all of us every single day. We just have to choose it. This story teaches us that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the kindness we show and the dignity we preserve, both in giving and receiving help. It reminds us that everyone struggles, everyone has worth, and everyone deserves the opportunity to rise. Sarah teaches us that accepting help with dignity is a form of strength, not weakness. David teaches us that giving help with respect is a form of wealth, not charity. Emma teaches us that hope and love can transform reality. Together they show us that we save each other through small acts of kindness, through choosing to see each other's worth, through believing that everyone deserves a chance. The coat was just a coat. The letter was just paper and ink. But combined with human compassion, they became bridges between broken worlds, tools for transformation, vehicles for miracles. We all have coats. We all have letters. We all have the ability to be someone's miracle. The question is, will we choose to be? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Leave a comment telling us about a time someone helped you, or a time you helped someone else. Let's build a community of kindness, one story at a time. Remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and more valuable than you know. And somewhere, someone needs exactly what you have to offer. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of the solution. See you in the next story.